Okay, sorry I did not turn this in last week. I have been sick, and then I had a weekend long cheer competition with my daughter. So it's taken me a second to get kind of back in the swing of things, going to clinic and everything. But I have my notes on the history of childbirth education, and I'll turn in the notes and then I'm gonna do a video on it. I also have a very needy puppy, so if you hear him, then there you go. Childbirth education has played a crucial role in really improving birthing people and infant health outcomes. It's something that I have been truly interested in since I became a doula. And then, the history of it, it has really evolved from traditional, more indigenous and community based practices to structured and professional programs designing, and they're designed to prepare expectant parents for labor and delivery, and then, of course, postpartum care. And so my notes kind of explore the historical development of childbirth education and why we need it, why it is a necessity, its evolution, its benefits, and then limitation and influence on future programs. So, the pre-professional childbirth education programs, before there were childbirth education programs, childbirth educations was largely pretty informal. It was community driven, and most cultures relied on it through oral traditions, midwives, and then of course intergenerational knowledge sharing. So Indigenous communities such as the Koori women in Australia integrated spiritual and cultural knowledge into childbirth education preparation. And then midwifery traditions in pre-industrial societies, midwives played an essential role in preparing women for childbirth through hands-on guidance and mentorship. And of course, the medicalization of birth, as childbirth moved from more of a home birth setting to hospital settings in the 20th century. Traditional knowledge was, as we know, gradually replaced with more obstetrical interventions, and then creating a need for formal education to kind of bridge the gap between medical advancements and then actual birthing people needs. So there was a huge need for professional childbirth education. The rise of medicalization in childbirth in the 20th century highlighted these gaps in knowledge and birthing people agency, leading to the establishment of more professional childbirth education programs. With the increased medical interventions, epidurals, C-sections had by this time become a lot more prevalent. There was a widespread use of obstetrical techniques. Forceps were being more used. Anesthesia, like I said, C-sections, and techniques were the first to actually integrate the husband, the partner, and it was they were really big game changers, especially the Lamaze technique, which people still use a lot of the Lamaze and the Bradley methods today. And then in the 1980s and the 1990s, there was a shift. There was more of an increased focus on pain management, talking about what an epidural is, the ingredients in an epidural, what it's going to kind of look like if you want to get one, if you don't want to get one, what else can be used for pain management. IV pain medication can be used up until 7 centimeters. And then cesarean awareness, what to expect, how you can have a more family-centered or gentle-centered cesarean if you even need a cesarean, or if an emergency cesarean arises, what we can talk about to get through these circumstances, what we can expect, and those types of things. Informed consent was huge, obviously, in the 1950s all the way up to the 1970s. Up until that point, we did not talk about informed consent. We didn't talk about shared decision making. And this was in a response to the rising medical interventions. And that was mostly talked about in the Walker et al. 2009. And then now, of course, the modern childbirth education models from the 2000s all the way up until now, we're going to incorporate more holistic approaches. We're also going to talk about pain management. We're also going to talk about cesarean awareness. And then addressing not only labor techniques, but also perinatal mental health, postpartum care, cultural inclusivity, and then also moving on to there's a lot more online courses now. So, childbirth education has expanded to to cover more diverse populations. There's even classes now for like LGBTQ, what it looks like if you are an LGBTQ family having an out-of-hospital birth, or an LGBTQ family having an in-hospital birth, because as we know, that can be vastly different on your outcomes and how it'd be treated. If you are a Black birthing person, if you are a Hispanic birthing person, all of these plans, and all of these childbirth education techniques can be taught in a way that can benefit and include everyone. The benefits of childbirth education, so many. Childbirth education provides numerous advantages for expectant parents, and it is always contributing to, I really do believe, improved maternal outcomes and infant outcomes, because as we know, if we have a birthing person who is well informed and feels like they are making a shared decision, then you are more likely to have a better infant outcome. Childbirth education increases confidence. It increases preparedness. For birthing people who attend childbirth education classes, they feel more prepared, and there was a lot more reduced anxiety, lower intervention rate. So if you're going to a childbirth education class, you may even be less likely to get an epidural. You are statistically less likely to get a C-section, and even less likely to go in for a labor induction. So if you have all that information and you know what your rights are, they're making better decisions going into the hospital, even if they are still having a hospital birth. Enhanced partner involvement. We see partners now who attend every childbirth education series. They're with them from day one all the way up until they give birth, and the connection that evolves from this is just so genuine. And this is just from the childbirth education classes that I've personally attended. I can actually see that these partners are feeling so much more connected to their partner because of their involvement in this class. Higher birthing person satisfaction. So birthing people who understand birthing options report greater satisfaction with their experiences and improve neonatal outcomes. So prenatal education contributes to healthier newborns, and through this increased awareness, it helps with prenatal nutrition and postnatal care. So just so many more, just benefits galore with childbirth education. I would say, if as a team as a team, if you were going to have the perfect team, the dream team, it would be a midwife, a doula, and then massage therapist, pelvic floor therapist, and then an amazing childbirth education course that you're able to take. So there are some limitations to childbirth education. So despite its disadvantages, accessibility, socioeconomic disparities can limit the quality of education. That's why we have so many nonprofits now that are willing to actually teach childbirth education, not just the hospitals, but doula and family-centered childbirth education courses by these nonprofits so that they can be accessed for free. There's a nonprofit specifically here in Texas called the San Antonio Birth Doulas, and they do free childbirth education. You don't have to be a part of their program. You can actually just enroll to take those childbirth education classes for free. And then there's another nonprofit called Latched, and the same thing, they do virtual childbirth education classes and in-birth childbirth education classes for free. So there are, I think it's just finding those resources that can help. Some childbirth education models may conflict with hospital policies, and this can create tensions between medical professionals and, of course, the educators. I think with that limitation, at least where I'm at, people are trying to get to know the medical providers here so that we can actually try to do more of a collaborative care type model. I know in other states that's not really always possible. But I do believe that Texas is one of the hardest states to actually get on board with these things. So if it can be done, then do it. I think that's the mindset that I'm kind of in now, especially with getting people these resources. If it can be done, do it. So it's not a limitation. It could just be another door. Time constraints, we all have busy schedules. I think that's where the online and the virtual classes really come into play. If you can take an in-person childbirth education class, that's obviously so recommended. But if you really cannot make it because you're busy, you're a mom, you're a single parent, and you still want to take childbirth education, I think that's why it's great that a lot of educators will do things virtually. And if you really can't do it, then putting that information out there so that they can get it sent to them. Excuse me. Limited cultural inclusivity. Some programs fail to address the diverse cultural beliefs and practices surrounding childbirth. The one that I've mentioned multiple times in this class already, Motherboard, is very culturally inclusive, and I think that any childbirth education class can be tailored to be more inclusive. It's just up to the educator to make it that way. If you're noticing that there are indiscrepancies and that it's not being inclusive, then it's up to us as educators to make it so. So, my personal reflection on all of this is I plan to incorporate culturally responsible education, and I really do want to address diverse birthing traditions and experiences. The closing of the bones ritual is one of my favorite things to go over, especially for postpartum moms. Belly binding, and so many other things that we can include people on, and then also letting our students really tell us what other cultures that they're a part of so that we can make them feel more included. I really plan to do that. I want to strengthen collaboration in healthcare. That is number one for me. Collaborative healthcare is so important. If we as midwives who are out of the hospital cannot collaborate with healthcare providers in the hospital, then I don't think we're ever going to truly get everything that we need to help serve our clients. So ensuring that medical professionals and educators and midwives work together is imperative, so that we can offer this evidence-based guidance. And then integrating mental health support, imperative. Addressing that anxiety and trauma and postpartum well-being with childbirth education, and even promoting lifelong learning, extending childbirth birth education to include parenting and infant care. Okay. I've made about 3 videos. I will turn in my notes on everything, and I hope you have a lovely evening. Thanks so much.